After the gas explosion, I transmigrated into a rich, willful, second-generation heir who is just a cannon fodder. The next second, the system handed me an unlimited black card. Just as I was excited and ready to enjoy some time with the club's models, the system pointed at the pitiful second female lead, Liane, drenched by the rain like a drowned rat, and said, "The male and female leads are already together. The only one left is the second female lead who loves the male lead but can't have him. She has fallen into a mud pit, and no one cares about her. Your task is to nurture her with money, make her the top star and lead actress in the entertainment industry, and save her dark life." As the system passionately explained, I learned that after the second female lead becomes a top star, she would hate me for humiliating her with money when she was at her lowest, and use the internet's public opinion to take revenge on me. After my death, she would finally realize her feelings, admit she had long been in love with me, regret her actions, and kneel at my new grave, crying every night and morning. After hearing such a dark script, I almost cried. The next second, I quickly snatched the black card, sped past the pitiful second female lead, splashed her with rainwater, and headed straight for the nearby mall and 4S store. I swiped the card like crazy, buying luxury watches, changing phones, upgrading to a top-tier computer, and buying a $1 million sports car. Over 20 boxes clanked as they filled the trunk of the luxury car. I laughed and said, "I, Kenji, have been poor for 24 years. I need this black card more than the second female lead to redeem my life." Chapter 1. The car's trunk was packed to the brim. I wiped the sweat from my forehead and slammed the loot shut with a thud. The system frantically shouted, "Host, you came to this world to redeem the second female lead. If you don't complete the task, you'll be punished." I quickly lay down under the car wheel. I laughed and said, "It's just an elimination, right? Stop wasting time. Control the vehicle and drive over me." The system shouted fiercely, "It's worse than death. If you don't complete the task, you will stay in this world forever." The air froze for a moment. I quickly pushed myself up and crawled out from under the car. The long strings of luxury watches on my arms made a crisp ringing sound. My voice trembled with excitement as I said, "So you mean if I don't do the task, the reward is to stay in this world forever as the son of the richest men in this city? Every time I open my eyes, I'll have endless money. All the malls, hotels, and spas will treat me as the most honored VIP. I can live however I want." The system was speechless. Then it gently coaxed, "Host, think of your parents. If you don't return, how will they live?" I boldly patted my chest and said, "Don't worry." I personally turned on the gas valve, lit the match, and sent everyone away in one go. Our family should be together. Before crossing into this world, one of them owed a gambling debt of 400,000 and forced me to take the blame. Another was a heavy drinker, causing me to lose my job. When I went home, my family and I fought. In the end, I twisted open the gas valve and took them with me. The system fell silent, and everything returned to calm. I proudly grabbed the full loot and headed home. On the way back, I encountered the anxious and impatient second female lead, Liane. She was standing under an eaves trying to avoid the rain, trembling with cold. Her phone in hand, she persistently dialed a number again and again. I glanced at the silent phone in the passenger seat. The screen flickered countless times. The last call automatically hung up, and the screen stayed on the WeChat interface. Long green messages appeared, and below the transfer record was Liane's last message to me earlier in the day. She wrote, "Don't keep using money to trample on my dignity. What you're doing is making me feel utterly disgusted." Chapter 2. I never thought that being bombarded with money by others was a form of humiliation. When I got into university in my original world, my alcoholic father and gambling mother pointed at my nose and scolded me. "You're such an unfilial son. All the other boys in the village at this age would be working on construction sites and sending money home. Look at you. Useless as you are, still asking for money from the family to go to school. Don't get any silly ideas. I won't give you a penny. Hurry up and go to the city to work and earn some money to help with the household expenses so I won't feel like I wasted raising you." I carried my modest luggage, leaving their sinister faces behind, and boarded the train to university alone. A student loan covered my tuition, and I had not a penny left. Fortunately, my dorm mate was a rich second generation who spent money like water. His one meal was worth what I would spend in a whole month. I became his errand runner, happily running around every day to buy water and meals for him. Even the clothes and shoes he didn't want, he casually tossed them to me, and I happily accepted. Everyone criticized me for having no backbone, calling me a lap dog who would abandon my dignity for money. But I knew the numbers. One meal could earn me 100 yuan in errand fees. Going downstairs to pick up a package or fetching water was at least 50. The shoes he threw at me were all branded goods. They were nothing like the worn-out shoes I had to keep wearing despite the soles being too thin. Someone who can't afford food, when handed a bowl of plain porridge, their first reaction is to feel grateful and gulp it down. They don't stare at the grains of sand in the bowl, shouting that the porridge is dirty. With his help, I smoothly finished my 4 years of university and even saved a few thousand yuan. But Lian was different. Every time I transferred money, she silently took it, then immediately raised her defenses, loudly voicing her grievances to protect her fragile dignity. She was unwilling to spend money, yet wanted others to kneel and hand it over to her. She wanted money and dignity. The heavy rain tirelessly poured over the earth, driving away the summer heat. I drove back to the villa and struggled to bring the items inside. A pile of low-key, luxurious gift boxes lay in the center of the living room, taking up half of the space. Up close, one could even smell the scent of money. It was quite pleasing. The system, seeing me lost in the pleasure of it all, couldn't help but speak. "Host, you should pity the second female lead. Save her. She has depression because she loves but cannot have the male lead." I crawled on the floor and said, "I've been poor for 24 years. My depression is worse than hers. If you keep nagging, my depression will immediately turn into bipolar disorder." The system wisely fell silent. The housekeeper May walked out of the kitchen. She glanced at me from behind, but there was no sign of Lian. Her face showed some displeasure as she spoke with a hint of complaint. "Mr. Wang, didn't you go to pick up Miss Liu? It's raining so heavily, and you're back alone. What about Miss Liu?" I looked up coldly at her. May's disapproving expression was all too clear, as if Miss Liu was the true mistress of this villa and I was merely a temporary resident. Lian was a well-known poor beauty at school. With her cold, frosty beauty in a pure white dress standing in the dappled sunlight, she had me completely captivated. When we were in school, the differences between us weren't obvious, but after graduation, as we stepped into society, we each returned to our respective classes. Coming from a poor family, Lian faced obstacles everywhere and could no longer remain proud. To make matters worse, the male lead whom she secretly admired was getting along well with the female lead, causing her to lose heart and lose her vitality. I brought her into the villa and prepared the best guest room on the second floor for her. Now, Lian had been living here for over a year. During this time, she had been kind and gentle with everyone in the villa. Once, May had broken a valuable porcelain set. According to the contract, I proposed deducting the cost from her salary for compensation, but Lian said indifferently, "Let it go. It's just a few porcelain bowls. Was it necessary to be so aggressive? When will you stop using money to humiliate others?" Her words nailed me to the pillar of shame, as if I truly were a heartless, vicious rich second generation. She gave her gentleness to others and reserved nothing but coldness and distance for me. The system was truly laughable. It wanted me to redeem a girl who was just heartbroken. Compared to her, shouldn't I be redeeming myself, a person full of scars? So I coldly sneered and said, "Miss, when did she become the mistress of this house? May, do you know who's paying your salary right now? Have you figured that out?" May froze, and just as she was about to say something, the villa door opened. Lian, drenched in rain, walked in, swiping her fingerprint to unlock the door. Behind her was a man with a dejected expression. It was the male lead, Jean. Chapter 3. She actually brought the male lead back to my villa? The system, with its usual overenthusiasm, explained to me. The male and female leads had a falling out. The lovesick second female lead thought her chance had come, so she couldn't wait to bring him back. Back in school, the love between the male and female leads was passionate and widely mocked as the classic rich girl and poor boy romance. But once they entered society, the script changed. The aspiring phoenix men wanted to climb the social ladder, and the poor girl, under the pressure of her parents, was forced into an arranged marriage. Their love couldn't withstand any challenges. The male lead wanted the female lead to stand by his side and bravely confront their parents. The female lead wanted to throw everything away and elope with him. But the upper class wouldn't rebel for love, and the lower class couldn't let go of their dreams of crossing social boundaries. After an argument, the male lead, furious, turned to the pitiful second female lead. Lien was overjoyed, thinking that her one-sided love had finally come to fruition. She rushed into the pouring rain, eager to find her male idol. And me? I, worried about her, was so lowly that I actually drove to meet her. In the male lead's return, Lien frowned and looked at me, asking, "Kinji, why didn't you answer your phone? Do you know that I waited forever for you to come pick me up? Jean almost caught a cold because of you." May, looking worried, quickly handed over 2 dry towels. She also turned to scold me. "Yes, Mr. Wong. Why did you come back alone? And why did you buy so many things?" Lien looked at the scattered gift boxes and the luxury cars parked in the yard. Her expression darkened, and she bit her lip. "Kinji, when will you change that spoiled rich kid attitude of yours? Just because you have money, does that make you special? Why waste money like this? Why don't you change your bad habits?" Every time I spent money, Lien would scold me with a cold face, as if I was spending money from her account. To get closer to her, and more to preserve her fragile dignity, I hadn't changed my clothes in a long time and hadn't gone to any fancy restaurants for meals either. Even so, Lien often gave me the cold shoulder, displeased when I ordered takeout or played games. I frowned and looked at her. I said, "I'm spending my own money. What does it have to do with you? Or has living here made you feel entitled? Do you really think everything here belongs to you?" Lien's face suddenly turned bright red. My words were extremely sharp, tearing apart her already fragile sense of dignity and trampling it on the ground. In the past, I would have carefully considered her feelings. Every word I spoke was rehearsed in my mind, afraid of upsetting her. She was sensitive and fragile. She needed delicate care, but she also needed large amounts of money to shower her. May tried to speak up in defense of Lien, but I interrupted her with a wave of my hand. "May, you're fired. Pack up your things and leave immediately. Also, the cost of the porcelain set you broke will be deducted from your salary this month." May shouted in protest. "Mr. Wong, how can you fire me? I didn't make any mistakes." Lien pouted, expressing her dissatisfaction with me. She said, "Kinji, you've never been poor. So do you know how disgusting it is to force people with money?" She was wrong. I had been poor, truly poor. Poor enough not to be able to buy a pen or afford a meal. Poor enough to dig through garbage bins for food. I would pick up discarded dry buns from the trash and stuff them into my mouth, stumbling my way through high school. I was so poor that when a rich kid from university handed me 100 yuan for running errands, I couldn't sleep all night, clutching the red note, turning it over and over. But I knew that poor people weren't like her. After accepting someone's money, they didn't turn around and insult them. I smiled and said, "All right then." I looked directly into her eyes and said, "May can stay. From now on, Miss Liu will be the one to pay your salary." Lien choked on her words, pressing her lips together without saying another word. She didn't want to pay the money. Even though I had transferred so much money to her, she only spent it on herself for clothes and makeup. She hadn't given me anything, not even a token gesture of appreciation. When May was dragged away by the housekeeper, she was still crying and begging for forgiveness, asking me for another chance. Standing next to Lien, Jean gritted his teeth. He glanced enviously at the villa and then lowered his head, sighing like an honest man and saying, "Lien, this is all my fault. Mr. Wong must be jealous that you brought me here. If that's the case, I'll leave." Chapter 4. He hunched his shoulders, lost and disheartened, about to leave, but Lien grabbed the sleeve of his shirt. She said, "Jean, it's so late and it's still raining heavily outside. What if you catch a fever? Just stay here tonight. Take a hot shower and get some sleep first." With that, she bypassed me, trying to take Jean upstairs. Lien lived in the largest south-facing guest room on the second floor. It was equipped with a vanity, walk-in closet, and a bathroom. When a maid came to clean every day, I quickly spoke up. "Wait." Lien turned around with an angry look on her face and said, "Kinji, I advise you to stop. I don't have time to waste with you arguing. I've always liked Jean. As for you, I've only ever seen you as a brother." At that moment, the system chimed in. Host, if you don't treat her like your real sister and redeem her a little, it'll be hard for me to complete the task. By the way, what's the most common thing your real sister has ever said to you? What was it? I seemed to see Maria's hysterical face from my past life, her fat face enlarging before me. I mimicked her tone and said, "You're so low class. Other brothers spoil their sisters. What's wrong with wanting a new phone? What's wrong with taking some of your money? Who told you not to give me any? This world owes women fairness and an apology, so you should support my schooling and find me a job. It's what you owe me. You better not provoke me. If you say another word, I'll cut your hair while you're sleeping tonight." The system fell silent again. My eyes were bloodshot. Lian's face began to overlap with Maria's. I was filled with anger. With a sharp snap, I grabbed the nearest cup and threw it at her. It slightly missed its target. Ah! With Jin's loud scream, the cup shattered at his feet, scattering pieces all over the floor. Lian initially stepped back in shock, but then gritted her teeth and glared at me, saying, "Kenji, you've gone too far. Apologize to Jean right now, or I'll move out of your villa tonight." I was speechless, but I couldn't help but laugh, feeling elated. I pointed to the open villa door and said, "Fine, then hurry up and leave. And remember to return the rent for the year, as well as all the money I've transferred to you." The rain outside poured down in torrents. Lian's face flickered in the flashes of lightning. Her hands tightly clutching her skirt, the hatred in her face was unmasked. What was she angry at me for? Angry because I gave her money? Angry because I helped her enter the entertainment industry? Angry because I used my connections to pave the way for her? After a while, I heard Lian's voice trembling with humiliation. She said, "Kenji, you should understand. Once I leave this door tonight, I will never come back. Playing hard to get will only make me hate you more." I calmly responded, "Really? A parasite like you? Do you think I would want you to come back?" Her face drained of color. Before this, I had never said such harsh words to her. Jean stood protectively by Lian and said, "Kenji, how can you use your wealth to insult others like this? Lian is such an outstanding woman. She will shine no matter where she goes." Lian would indeed shine. In the book, I did everything for her, investing in a movie where she starred as the lead, using all my connections to smooth her path. With such a smooth road ahead, she could easily rise to the top and win awards. But now, without my help, Lian was just a pretty face. The former school belle and Jean, full of ambition and eager to climb the social ladder by using the female lead's family background. There was no way he would abandon his bright future for a mere vase with a bit of charm. Lian linked arms with Jean and left the villa. Their departure was slow, as if they were waiting for someone to beg them to stay. Finally, when they stood outside the villa and the iron gate slammed shut behind them, Lian, still caught up in the thought that I would regret it, was struck by the harsh reality. Her face showed shock as she stood there, unsure of what to do. Inside the villa, the system carefully observed my bloodshot eyes and cautiously suggested, "How about you see a psychologist right now? Compared to the lovesick second female lead, you seem more like a dark person." Chapter 5. The psychologist sat across from me, holding a stack of tests I had filled out. Following the usual process, he asked, "Mr. Wong, what do you think is the biggest reason that causes you to lose control of your emotions?" I leaned back in my chair, expressionless, and said one word, "Poor." As soon as the word left my lips, the 8 gold watches on my wrist and the 13 gold chains around my neck flashed in his eyes. The psychologist opened his mouth, hesitated for a long time, then nervously asked, "Do you have any obsessive-compulsive tendencies in your daily life?" I thought for a moment and said, "Only when I buy a lot of things to fill up the house do I feel a sense of security. Otherwise, I'm always afraid that one day I'll run out of food. Sometimes I feel like a hamster, desperately hoarding food and stuffing myself." The psychologist took off his glasses, rubbed his eyes, and tried to avoid looking at the large gold chains and small gold watches. He scratched his nearly bald head. After a moment of silence, he came to a conclusion he couldn't believe. According to the test results, you've been living in an environment where you've been oppressed and have been starving for a long time, causing significant psychological stress. I would suggest that you follow your instincts and buy some things to fill your home. This can help ease your anxiety. At that moment, my phone dinged. I opened it to see a message from my good friend Tomo. He wrote, "Kenji, The plot of land you've been eyeing for Lou, the campus beauty. It's going to be auctioned tomorrow. See you at the auction. This land will increase in value considerably in the future. I thought for a moment, if I could buy it, wouldn't I be able to donate more to build schools and help children who can't afford education return to school? This warm future fantasy made me feel like I was back in the days when I wasn't so reckless, when I still craved the warmth of family, when I still dreamed of no longer worrying about food and clothing, before I had reached the point of madness, turning on the gas valve in a fit of anger. I quickly typed, "Of course, I'll go tomorrow." The auction was crowded. I arrived with Tomo and quickly splurged on 5 plates of Argentine red shrimp. He looked at me speechlessly and said, "Bro, don't you usually get nauseous from eating everything?" Then he handed me a drink and said, "Well, seeing you have such an appetite makes me feel relieved. Take your time eating, don't choke." I forced a smile. It wasn't that I had a good appetite. I was truly afraid of being poor, afraid that once I finished eating, I wouldn't have another meal, so I had developed the habit of stuffing food into my mouth whenever it was available. Tomo turned around casually and, as if discovering a new world, pointed behind me in shock. "Whoa, isn't that Lou, the campus beauty you like? Why is she here with another man?" I turned to look. I saw Lien and Jean at the auction. I asked the system, "Isn't this place supposed to have a capital verification for entry? How did she get in? Did she rob a bank and get rich overnight?" The system replied, "Host, you once sent her an invitation. She entered as your guest." Lien was still wearing the dress she had been kicked out in yesterday. It had been washed but not ironed, leaving noticeable creases. It showed how little she had. She bit her lip and stared at me for a long time. The resentment and anxiety on her face slowly morphed into a sneer, as if she had known everything all along. She probably thought I was here for her. After all, I had privately mentioned this plot of land to her several times. I had promised to buy it as a gift for her 24th birthday, to be used as a dowry when I married her. As the auction continued, Lien's expression became even more arrogant. She wore a smug look on her face. After several rounds of bidding, I won the undeveloped land for 300 million. The auctioneer enthusiastically held up the contract and said, "Mr. Wong, congratulations on securing the development rights. After signing the contract, this plot of land will be your private property." Just as I was about to step forward, Lien calmly stood up under the spotlight. Her lost dignity was completely regained in that moment. She had a look of pride on her face as she said to me, "Kinji, since you bought the land for me, I'll forgive your impulsiveness from last night. As long as you apologize to Jean, I'll move back to the villa tonight." Chapter 6. She accepted the land worth 3 billion with such calmness, not a trace of gratitude on her face, only relief and a sense of entitlement. Lien might not know, but beneath this familiar face, her soul had already been replaced. Soon, she would realize that prying money from my mouth was harder than prying teeth from me. I sat in my place, sizing her up from head to toe, and with a fake smile I said, "Who said this land was bought for you, Lien?" She froze for a moment. I sneered, "You? You think you're worth a 3 billion land? Did you think it had gold borders or something?" A soft laugh spread through the auction room. Tomo patted me on the shoulder, excited. "Damn Wong bro. Your eyesight, which has been bad for 5 years, finally recovered today? Hope it doesn't happen again, huh?" Lien stood under the lights as if she had been stripped bare in front of a crowd, her dignity shattered by the humiliation and shame. She stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. Coincidentally, it had been less than a day since we first met. The system had tasked me with redemption, but it had chosen the wrong person. I, a person full of darkness, couldn't even save myself, let alone save a second female lead possessed by a little fairy. Whispers filled the auction room, clearly reaching Lien's ears. They were talking about how she was being kept and how shameless she was. Seeing Lien humiliated like this, Jin's protective instincts were triggered. He could no longer sit still and stood up to question me. "Kinji, why aren't you giving the land to Lien?" I was speechless. Squinting slightly, I asked, "How about you buy the land for her with your 3 billion?" Jean was speechless. It seemed like as long as the second female lead was pitiful enough, everyone had to unconditionally protect her. I too was a dark and sharp-tongued person, crawling through the dirt. Why didn't everyone come to my aid for free? Lien's face turned crimson, ashamed and embarrassed. She fled with Jean. Before leaving, she glared at me and spat out, "Kinji, even if you beg me in this lifetime, I'll never return to your villa." The second female lead and her male lead disappeared completely from my world. There was no longer anything standing between them. I imagined that Lien must have gotten her wish, living happily ever after with her male idol. On the third day after winning the land, I walked into a 4S store. I reached out and gently touched the latest luxury car. The feeling of it really soothed the anxiety in my heart. Suddenly, the system sighed in my mind. I tactfully replied, "Why? Did I not go crazy these past few days, giving you the time to sigh?" The second female lead is having a tough time now. It thoughtfully showed me Lien's recent situation. After leaving the villa, Lien and Jean calculated how much money they had left and rented a one-bedroom apartment in a village on the outskirts of the city. It was a hot and stuffy summer, and the inside was like a steamer, but the two of them were like a couple who supported each other through tough times, clinging to each other and sharing their heartfelt words. Jean said, "Lien, give me some time. I'll make sure you live a good life. When I succeed, when I have money, I'll make you a movie star." Lien, blushing, nestled into his arms and said, "Jean, I don't care about money. As long as I'm with you, I'm content." But behind the scenes, Jean was facing numerous rejections. Each failed job search made him yearn more for the days with the female lead, recalling how he had been so close to success, but now struggled with basic survival being an issue. His insatiable ambition brooded resentment. Similarly, although Lien claimed to be satisfied, she had once been pampered by me like a simp, living in a luxurious mansion, dining at the most expensive restaurants, and staying in hotels costing over 10,000 per night. How could she endure living in a village on the outskirts? It was like a woman who had once been loved by a lion. Now a hyena was just a distraction. The system cautiously spoke up. "How about we do a little redemption? After all, I also have KPI assessments. If the host doesn't complete the task, it will lower my personal completion rate." Chapter 7. At this moment, I was sitting in the car. I pulled the seat belt out decisively, tightening it around my neck. Rolling my eyes, I croaked out, "Come on, say it again. I dare you. Do you believe I'll perform a live show where I strangle myself for fun?" The system wailed pitifully. "Host, can we please sit down calmly and talk this through?" I released the seatbelt, changing the subject. "Well, you're right. The second female lead is indeed in a bad situation. After all, in City A, every inch of land is precious, and even pigeon cage-sized apartments cost a lot of money." The system flailed its virtual arms. "Are you starting to redeem the second female lead now?" I took out my phone and opened Lien's WeChat. She had left the villa days ago, but had never deleted my contact info. Her profile picture was still lying in my contact list. Her moments refreshed 3 times a day. Each post was about showing off her love life. The latest post was a lovey-dovey selfie with Jean. I sent her a Lien. It almost instantly showed typing. After a long while, she finally sent me a "Kinji, don't you think it's too late for you to contact me now?" I was speechless. "What do you mean, too late? When asking for money, it's never too late." I frowned and replied, "It's not too late. The money I transferred to you this year and the rent you owe for staying at my place. I've had my lawyer organize everything and send it to your email. Make sure you pay me back on time." There was no reply from her. Even the typing status disappeared. I waited for a long time, but still didn't get a response. Once, Lien had thought that me giving her money was an insult. Now that I wanted to redeem this insult, she clung tightly to it. Unwilling to return even a single cent, seeing that she hadn't replied, I specifically sent her May's WeChat info. I wrote, "May really likes you. She treats you like her own daughter. Now I've fired her. If you need a nanny, you can contact her. Her salary is $8,000 a month, with meals and accommodation included, plus triple pay for holidays. Don't forget." Still no response. I raised my phone and showed it to the system. I said, "You see? It's not that I don't want to redeem her, but she's too proud to talk to me at this point." The system fell completely silent. Chapter 8. The land from the auction was quickly secured, and the new project began to be planned intensively. To attract some investments, I specifically sought out the villainess from the book. At first, the system tried to stop me, saying, "Host, that's a villainous Anna, the cunning and ruthless princess of the rich circle." I argued, "Oh please. Just because she doesn't pamper the main characters and refuses to give up her share, you call her cunning and ruthless? What about Lien? Why does she get to wear the label of the devoted second female lead? The meeting went smoothly. In this body, I was just an office worker, clueless about investments or business. The only knowledge I had about business was from the rich kid in my dorm before I crossed over. He casually said to me, "In business, the most important is to offer a share of the profits. Only when others can benefit will they be willing to continue cooperating with you." He not only funded my college education, but also taught me many practical things. He even got me my driver's license because he found the process too tedious and dragged me along as his companion. During the summer holidays, he even paid my registration fee. I pondered over the idea of profit sharing. I decisively changed the proposed 60 to 40 profit split to 70 to 30. With the contract signed, I suddenly felt like celebrating, so I ordered a few bottles of expensive red wine. What I didn't expect was that when the private room door opened and someone came in with the wine, it was Lien. I hadn't seen her for more than a month. She had lost quite a bit of weight and looked much more haggard. If before she had been the melancholic school beauty, now she was tainted with weariness and fatigue. Her once bright, innocent eyes were gone. This was the city's largest nightclub. Beautiful women walked around with drinks, and Lien blended in, barely noticeable. She raised her glass, and when she looked up, she saw that the only people in the luxurious private room were me and another unfamiliar woman. She froze for a moment in disbelief, then quickly approached me and grabbed my sleeve, accusing me in an agitated tone. "Kenji, who is she? Why are you two alone together?" Without mercy, I pushed her down to the ground and adjusted my sleeve. "When I'm doing business, do I need to report to you? What are you even to me?" Lien looked utterly aggrieved, her face turning red and pale. She stared at me for a long time before finally lowering her eyes and sighing. It was like surrendering, or perhaps like the tension she'd carried for so long finally eased. She spoke slowly. "Kenji, you've won. You knew I was working here and deliberately brought someone else to rub it in my face, didn't you? For over a month, you purposely didn't contact me so that I could realize who I really love, right?" She bit her lip and said, "I'm willing to admit it now. I love you more than I love Jean." She closed her eyes as if she were making a final break with the past, and yet it also felt like she was reluctantly stepping into a new life. She spoke haltingly. "Kenji, I will come back to you and promise not to have any private contact with Jean again. But I have one. You have to give me the land first, and then we'll set some ground rules. First, take back the debt repayment list you sent me." I slammed my hand on the table and shouted, "What?" I quickly realized the money was about to slip away and interrupted her. "You're asking for the land? Fine. But you dare ask for my money too?" I gritted my teeth and continued. "You want the land and the money and still have the audacity to come back to me after everything? Are you some kind of disaster bringer? Is it my fate to be ruined just by being associated with you?" Chapter 9. In this story, I spent most of my efforts turning Lien into the new Best Actress of the entertainment industry. After she won the Best Actress award, the first thing she did was use online public opinion to heavily criticize the Wong Group. She even bought an army of internet trolls and marketing accounts, collaborating to suffocate my parents' newly started business in its infancy. From that moment, the Wong family had no chance of recovery. My parents soon died in despair. Men and women really think differently. When a woman loves a man, she wants to firmly grasp all his money, as if she's holding onto a beast of burden who will work hard for her. She doesn't care about how tough things are for him on the outside. The man only gets a bit of pocket money, and yet even then he still has to spend it buying gifts for his girlfriend on every holiday. But men are different. When a man loves a woman, he often fulfills her needs without considering the cost. To give his wife a better life, he works tirelessly and transfers paycheck after paycheck into her account. Then, watching her appetite grow bigger, he feels like everything is deserved. Eventually, his true nature comes out, and she begins to complain about the lack of time spent with him, turning to another man's embrace, and she doesn't even have the money for a divorce. But I've been poor. I've been desperately poor, so I value money more than my life. No one will lay a hand on my money, so I said sharply, "Lien, do you really need me to make myself clear? I'm not interested in you at all. Can you please get out of my sight and disappear from my life forever?" She was close enough that I could clearly see Lien's lips trembling. She had never believed I could suddenly stop loving her. The love from before had been so intense enough that she felt wrapped up in it and believed it would never disappear. She said with a quiver, "Impossible." She stared at me with eyes devoid of emotion, asking, "How could you stop loving me, Kenji? You're just angry with me, right? I've always lacked security. I couldn't believe that a rich young master like you would ever like someone like me. So I kept testing your limits to see if you really loved me." She choked up. "Now I'm sure you really love me. So let's stop arguing. Can we go back to how things were and live like we used to?" She was begging me. Her eyes shimmered with tiny sparks. But love, that's a luxury only the rich and powerful can afford to give. I had only crossed into this book a month ago and suddenly became wealthy. I couldn't give her such a luxury. To ask for love from me was destined to be in vain. The person who could give her that love had already disappeared. She stared into my eyes, trying to find the past love there. But after searching for a long time, she found no trace of love, only unfamiliarity and weariness. If she hadn't actively appeared in front of me, I would have even forgotten what the book's devoted second female lead looked like. I laughed and said, "You're right. A rich kid like me could never like someone like you. A plain, unremarkable girl. Now you've proven it. So can you leave?" Lien was frightened. For the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. This past month in the rundown district had been hard. In order to survive, she had to come to places like this, full of shady characters, to sell alcohol. Lien forced a smile as if trying to convince herself. She said, "It's not possible. You love me so much. How could you suddenly stop loving me?" She ran up to me, grabbing my arm tightly, refusing to let go. "Kenji, I don't care. Come with me. We need to talk. I don't believe you've stopped loving me." At this moment, her acting like a spoiled child reminded me of my father's old ways. On the day I was tricked into believing my father was seriously ill and had to return home, I went through the most dangerous moment of my life. My father wanted me to drop out of school and go work in Southeast Asia with some people from our village, promising high pay. I strongly opposed it and argued with him for a long time. In the end, he also grabbed my arm like this, along with a few strangers, and dragged me to the car, shouting, "Kenji, go earn some money. You think just because you've been to college you've got wings, huh? I'm telling you, whether you want to or not, you're going." That scene was now replaying before me. Only Anna noticed the bloodshot look in my eyes. It felt like something had invaded my mind, and I shouted loudly. The next moment, there was a crisp slap as I raised my hand and struck Lien hard across the face. She covered her face. Shock and pain mingled on her expression. She couldn't believe that the man who once loved her so much would strike her so mercilessly. Then Anna quickly curled up in the corner of the sofa, hugging her little head, her eyes full of fear, shouting, "The profit split should be 60 to 40. No, 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 it should be 50 to 50. Just 50 to 50. If you hit her, you can't hit me anymore. Woohoo. I'll have the secretary draft the new contract right away. Secretary, hurry up and print the new contract. Make it 50 to 50, please. Hurry. If you don't come soon, you'll have to offer incense for me next week." Amid the chaos, the system cried out, clutching me. "Host, I was wrong. Please get a psychologist to see you. I'll never let you this dark. Try to redeem the second female lead again." Chapter 10. I sat once again in front of the psychologist. A stack of completed tests was handed to him. The psychologist rubbed his few remaining hairs on his bald head. The papers seemed to be staring at him with holes in them. He hesitated before asking, "Mr. Wong, what do you think is the root cause of your emotional outburst this time?" I leaned back against the chair and said, "It's like reliving a painful memory, one that's been haunting me like a bone-deep wound, and I can't escape it." The psychologist seemed to find a breakthrough. His voice lightened, and he asked, "Really? Can you tell me what you were doing at that time?" I said, "Signing a contract. I bought a piece of land for 300 million. We had agreed on a profit split of 30 to 70, but she insisted on 50 to 50. According to the calculations, the partner gave me at least 200 million in profit." The few remaining hairs on his head were now completely rubbed off. He wiped his face vigorously and took a deep breath. He then made his conclusion and said, According to the feedback from the test, you seem to be reliving a painful memory. Perhaps Perhaps you could try to minimize similar scenarios in the future. Like, like reducing the chance to earn 200 million. His voice lacked confidence. I wasn't too willing to agree with him, but I reluctantly took in his last point, minimizing similar scenarios. I pulled out the calculation sheet I had sent to Lien and added an item for medical expenses as well as compensation for the slap I gave her. I frowned and asked the system, "How much do I need to compensate for a slap?" The system replied, "Depends on the severity of the injury. For minor injuries, it could be a few thousand, while severe cases could reach hundreds of thousands." The second female lead was still alive. That meant the injury wasn't serious. Generously, I scratched off 20,000 and sent her the remaining 10 million bill. When Lien's call came through, I quickly hung up, then I blocked her. After completing all of this, I let out a sigh, and Tomo's call came in. He asked, "Kenji, want to go drink? I have news about Lien." Tomo's voice was full of glee. At the bar, while pouring drinks, Tomo teased, "She can't come up with the money to pay her debts, so she's begging Gene to lend her some. And guess what? That guy, Gene, is such a jerk. Not only did he refuse to lend her money, but he also packed everything up and ran off to reconcile with his ex." In this book, the male and female leads went round in circles and got back together. The rich young lady and the poor boy continued to play out their love-hate drama. Meanwhile, I, who had been funding the devoted second female lead, completely cut ties with her and went back to being a wealthy heir. Everything returned to square one. Only Lien remained at the finish line with the love she wanted and the love she had slipping through her fingers without catching a single one. Back in school, Lien had fallen for Gene at first sight. The reason was simple enough to be laughable. The pitiful second female lead had no money. One day in the school cafeteria, she was holding a tray, but the money in her card wasn't enough to pay for a simple meal. When the male lead saw her, he generously swiped his own card. From that moment, the seeds of love began to sprout. Even later, when I spent 10 million on Lien, it was nothing compared to the 20 yuan the male lead had once spent on her. I bitterly opened a bottle of wine worth 200,000. The second female lead didn't deserve 10 million. She only deserved to hold 20 yuan worth of food and slowly enjoy this old meal mixed with love over the long years. I thought that I would never see Lien again. However, as I was leaving the bar with Tomo and driving back to the villa, I unexpectedly saw a lonely figure standing outside the villa. She seemed to have been waiting for me for a long time. I dug deep into my memories, and after a moment, barely recognized her. It was the once distant and cold second female lead. Chapter 11. When Lien saw my car, a glimmer of light appeared in her eyes. She cautiously called out, "Mr. Wong, you've blocked all my contacts. I had no choice but to wait here for you to return." She no longer had her usual arrogant attitude. A faint bruise lingered on her face, the traces of life's hardships left etched in her features. I recalled the psychologist's advice, minimize the repetition of similar situations. And Lien, she always made me remember the most painful memories. Instinctively, I tried to avoid her and head back to the villa. Lien grew anxious. She tried to step forward and grab my arm, but then remembered the pain from the slap I had given her last time. She suddenly withdrew her hand and instead stepped in front of me to block my path. She said, "Kenji, I know I've done many things wrong to you in the past, and it's my fault for not understanding my own feelings. Your family is so wealthy, and I always felt I wasn't good enough for you, which is why I tried to test your love for me." She spoke with such sincerity, tears even shimmered in her eyes. I frowned and took a step back. She had treated this relationship like glass, testing its strength over and over, and as she wished, the glass finally shattered. Now, having gotten what she wanted, she was unwilling to accept the break and insisted on piecing it all back together. So I replied calmly, "But you failed my test, so it's over between us." The system tried to struggle one last time. "How about?" I snapped, "Shut up. Why would I want something the male lead doesn't even want? Is this a garbage dump?" The system fell silent. A look of shock appeared on Lien's face. She couldn't believe that I had withdrawn my love, and even more so, she couldn't accept that someone who had once loved her so deeply now held no affection in their eyes. For so long, she had been maintaining a delicate balance, taking money from me, giving love to Gene. She desperately wanted to hold on to both, but in the end, it all amounted to nothing. As I tried to pass her and head back to the villa, Lien suddenly knelt before me. Faint tear tracks crossed her face. Her voice choked. Kenji, you're lying to me. How could you not love me? You used to love me so much. How could you suddenly stop? She knelt on the ground. Through her blurred tears, she couldn't see the blood-red fury growing in my eyes. Chapter 12. The day I turned on the gas valve, my mother knelt on the floor in the same way, using her usual filial piety to manipulate me. She said, Kenji, I raised you all these years. Why can't you pay off your mother's gambling debts? Do you want to see those debt collectors kill your mother before you're satisfied? You're always so selfish, only thinking about yourself and never about the family. Mom is kneeling for you. Mom is bowing to you. Can you please borrow some money online to pay off my debts? Her head kept hitting the ground, the sound resounding. It was as if by doing this, I would become a deeply wicked person, a mere clay to be molded by her moral coercion. Now Lien was also kneeling beside me, her figure slowly blending with my mother's aging image. Between my father and sister, the one I hated most was my mother. My father and sister were ignorant evils, but she had a gambling addiction she couldn't shake off, yet she still tried to drag me down with her. You could never pay off the hole she dug because she would always cry and kneel in front of you saying she had changed, only to continue the same behavior the next time. A blood-red color in my eyes grew more intense. The past and present intertwined. At that moment, my reason was devoured. I grabbed Lien's hair and slammed her head onto the ground. I yelled, Since you like bowing so much, go ahead and bow to your heart's content. Today, even if you bow yourself to death, I will not let you control me. I would never allow my life to become the nourishment for my family's selfishness. By the time I finished cursing, I couldn't even tell who was in front of me. It wasn't until the butler dragged my maddened self into the villa that I regained a bit of clarity. I looked back at Lien. Blood covered her forehead. This was for the best. From the despair in her eyes, I knew that Lien had thoroughly realized the truth, that not only did I no longer love her, but I also hated her with all my heart. When the psychologist came for the third time, he was now completely bald. This time he didn't ask me to fill out any tests. He said, those things don't work. He had given up and cut straight to the point, asking me, Mr. Wong, every time you lose control of your emotions, who is present? I thought carefully and replied, Lien, she is always there. The psychologist slammed his hand on the table and said, the cause is right here. From now on, avoid this troublemaker. Whenever you see her, stay at least 10 yards away from her, and I guarantee you won't experience this anymore. A miracle doctor. He immediately prescribed the right treatment. I had an epiphany on the spot. I thanked the doctor profusely and made sure to keep his words in mind. From now on, in my life, I would not allow the lovesick second female lead to appear again. Chapter 13. The land I purchased began to develop in full swing. What puzzled me was that the book's biggest antagonist, Anna, always brought 2 bodyguards with her every time she saw me, keeping a distance of at least 3 meters and never daring to approach. In the book, she was described as a cold and aloof female CEO, ruthless and merciless. The description didn't quite match reality. She was probably regretting the 50-50 profit split, which made sense. After I bought the land, I didn't have any startup capital left, so she invested a full $400 million into the project, but her shares were equal to mine. No wonder she was regretting it. At that moment, I realized that I was probably the biggest villain in this book. If a bird flew over my head, I would pluck a feather. I often stayed at the construction site to check on the progress, and after Lien couldn't find me at my villa, she spent a long time tracking me down. She began coming to the construction site to find me. I took the psychologist's advice to heart and hired bodyguards. As soon as I saw Lien from afar, I had them escort her away. From a distance, I heard the second female lead's hysterical voice as she shouted, Please, Kenji, I just want to say one thing to you. Just 1 minute. I rubbed my brow in disgust. In front of me was a project worth billions. How could I spare a minute to talk to this harbinger of doom? Tomo sneered, Tch. The gold digger just wants money. After being locked up in a cage for so long, she must miss the comfortable days in the villa. At the beginning, Lien had thought about playing minor roles in dramas, but once the directors and staff learned that she had fallen out with me, they ignored her. Then she started a live stream, trying to become an internet celebrity by using suggestive content. But even the competition in that niche was fiercer than expected, and eventually she was banned for violating the platform's rules. By now, she had lost any trace of the former movie queen she once was. My lawyer was chasing her down for $9.98 million. The additional $20,000 was voluntarily deducted by me for her medical fees for the injury to her forehead. I was always clear with money. I would never take advantage of others, but no one would be able to take advantage of me either. Lian couldn't repay the money, so she sued Jean, claiming he had stolen her funds and demanding he return everything and compensate her for the losses. At that point, the love-stricken second female lead and the male protagonist were completely estranged. Without me, the villain in the middle, they ended up in a confrontation in court. Once passionate love had vanished. After the falling out, Jean was sued, and the first female lead's family found out. Though the heroine had some romantic blind spots, her parents were very clear-headed. I didn't care about that. What mattered to me was that my $9.98 million had finally been returned. On the day the mall construction was completed, the system, which had been silent for a long time, suddenly cheered in my ear. "Host, I'm leaving." A rare pang of conscience struck me. I said, "Sorry, I couldn't help you complete your task, affecting your KPI." It replied, "Host, my task is complete." The cheers rang in my head. Only then did I understand. The system's mission was to redeem the lovesick second female lead, to help her break free from her dark and obsessive tendencies. I had succeeded. Now the second female lead had no trace of darkness or obsession left. All that remained was the hardship of life and a pitifully empty wallet. She had no time to brood because the customers in the box were calling for her again. She had no time to be obsessive either because the customers would complain about her. Wonderful. I congratulated myself. I had successfully redeemed a dark, obsessive person. When the second round of investments came in, I donated to several schools and helped children in poor mountain areas return to school. I hadn't lost control of my emotions in a long time. The nightmares from before I entered the book slowly faded away. On the first day the mall opened, I successfully received my first bonus. It also happened to be my 26th birthday. I met up with Tomo and Anna at a nightclub booth during the evening. The fruit platter we ordered was brought in. The door opened, and unexpectedly, Lian appeared in front of me. Chapter 14. She held the heavy fruit platter and drinks, and as usual, crouched down to place them on the table. Just as she was about to say something, she looked up and saw me sitting in the center of the sofa. For a moment, she seemed dazed. Although it had only been 2 years since we last spoke, it felt as if we had lived an entire lifetime together. She froze for a moment, then said to me, "Kenji, I had a dream. I dreamed that you helped me enter the entertainment industry and even made me the best actress. But I always thought that the money you gave me was a humiliation, that I repaid kindness with ingratitude, leading to the downfall of the Wang family and eventually caused your death." By the end, her voice trembled and choked up. She might have dreamed of the plot of the original book. In her dream, she lived a life of wealth and glory, but when she woke up, it was all a fleeting illusion. The 4 of us in the new house wore different expressions. My unfamiliar gaze met her tearful eyes, and there was not a hint of emotion in mine. Tomo impatiently glanced at Lian. Lian had already lost all her sharp edges, yet she still looked at me with hope in her eyes. She longed for me to change my mind, hoping I would fall in love with her again and pull her out of the mire. Only Anna, the book's greatest villain, was curled up in the corner, covering her head in fear and shouting, "What are you standing there for? Close the door already." Every time this young Master Wang sees her, he goes crazy. "If you don't close the door, you'll really have to burn incense for me next time." The door was slammed shut. One door separated us into 2 different worlds, worlds that would never merge. The world Lian had once despised, she would never set foot in it again.